Chapter 6. Roz and Conrad sat at her writing desk, needing a brief respite from sex. Her vagina felt well used. She'd never experienced soreness from fucking too much before, but she was pleased to have done so at least once. She scrawled a heading at the top of a legal pad. Dates. Shouldn't it be hot dates? Conrad asked, twirling her hair around his finger. Roz grinned at him. I'm sure some of them are bound to be. Now concentrate. We're supposed to be thinking of how we can have fun and discover new ways to make a living at the same time. How practical do these ideas have to be? She shrugged. I don't know. Go nuts, I guess. We can always cross things off the list if they're too ridiculous. That's true. He leaned over and blew in her ear. Cut that out. She couldn't help the grin that contradicted her words. What's impractical that you were thinking of? He shifted and cleared his throat. If she wasn't mistaken, she'd think he was embarrassed. Come on, you. Out with it. I was thinking, how about dance instructors? You see those shows with celebrities learning to dance in a matter of weeks. Think how good we might get in 6 months, and it looks like all kinds of fun. Roz squealed and clapped her hands. Fantastic idea. I've always wanted to dance like that. Okay then. He smiled, showing lots of teeth. Let's start the list with that. This is a great idea. I think all kids should do this before high school. Maybe more would discover their bliss. Yeah, we could call it the bliss list. Roz laughed. One can always hope it leads to finding our bliss outside the bedroom, that is. He playfully nipped her ear and growled. Don't start, buddy. We need to concentrate on this. Okay. He sighed. How about you? Is there anything else you've been dying to try but never pursued? Like skydiving? Skydiving? You mean you jump out of a perfectly good airplane that wasn't going down in flames? She chuckled. I take it you're not into that idea. Talk about dying to try something. I'm sure it's not that dangerous, or we'd hear more about it on the news. She lifted one eyebrow. You're not scared, are you? Of course not. I was just teasing. Actually, it never occurred to me, but I'll try it. I hear some people get really addicted to it. Yeah, I've heard that too. Some even compare it to bliss. But how would that translate into a job? Maybe we could join some of those fancy dive teams, or we could get certified as instructors after a few hours. How few? I don't know, but I'll look into it later. Let's not stop brainstorming while the ideas are flowing. Conrad paced with his hands in his pockets. Okay, let's think of a few more ideas. Suddenly he halted. I know, cooking school. We could take a couple of cooking classes, and if preparing food is something we feel passionate about, we could go to culinary school and open a restaurant. Yeah, the cooking part sounds like fun. I might like to become head chef, but I'll let someone else own and run the place. That sounds like more headaches than bliss. Good idea. Let's see if the cooking really turns us on first. Then if we really like the idea of owning our own place and think the headaches would be worth it, we can follow up after that. There's the practical side. I knew you had one. Conrad raised an eyebrow. Hey, you were the one who said to dream big. Go big or go home, I believe you said. So should I go home? No. Don't you dare. Here. I'm putting it all on the list. Roz wrote cooking classes, culinary school, chefs, maybe own restaurant. Conrad gazed over her shoulder. Good. All in the right order too. See how easily a plan springs from a goal. Yup. I see quite well. Now what else? Do you have any musical talent? Music appreciation is about all I can offer. I don't think that's an occupation. Okay, it would probably take too long to learn to play anything but the kazoo, and I'm not willing to practice for years and hope the symphony has an opening someday. What else you got? I like photography, and I've even fantasized about being a filmmaker from time to time. Roz narrowed her eyes. What kind of filmmaker? The legitimate kind. Besides, the only porno I want to make is with you, babe. She chuckled. Ugh, no. I'm on board with anything else you want to film. Should I write photography or filmmaker, or both? Why not put them both down? We can try one and then the other. If one type doesn't speak to us, the other one might. True. Hey, maybe we could try acting or directing. Acting is out, Conrad said. Why? Look, you'd make a beautiful leading lady, but if you think I'm going to let some other dude play a love scene with you, there's that jealous streak again. I can't decide if I love it or hate it. Come to think of it, I never thought about that. Yeah, I wouldn't like to see you smooching the collagen off some Hollywood starlet either. Good. Maybe we're getting a little unpractical. Let's think of something less lofty. Roz tapped the paper. How about bartending? I've heard bartending school is only a 2-week course. Really? That could work. Tips on a busy weekend night can be tremendous, and if we're working together, who needs to worry about going out to a club or bar? On a Saturday night, we're already there. And eventually we could own a place where everybody knows our names. Conrad laughed. Sounds like our apartment building. Yeah, that might be nice, except there are still some residents I haven't met. That's right. I've been completely selfish and monopolized all your free time. I should take you around and introduce you. Would you? That would be great. I haven't even met my neighbor across the hall yet. He groaned. What? Oh, nothing. Nathan can be a good guy, but he's an acquired taste. Well, then I should start getting used to him, right? He nodded, albeit reluctantly. Okay, let's do this. Roz put her hand on Conrad's arm and stopped him before he knocked on Nathan's door. Why did Dottie call him Nasty Nathan? I have no idea. Probably something she imagined. Dottie sounds like a piece of work. I wonder what she's going to tell people about me. She'll probably like you, as long as I don't make you howl too loud. You live right beneath her and I live across the hall. She had a problem with the girls on the 3rd floor making sex noises. We'll have to try it in the laundry room. He winked. Maybe she isn't getting any. That's entirely possible. She's way too uptight. Now are you ready to meet Nathan? Roz took a deep breath. Sure. Conrad rapped on the door. They waited a minute and heard several locks clicking on the other side of the door. Wow, Nathan seems serious about safety. He's a little eccentric. Weird sense of humor, but don't let him get to you. He does it for shock value. The door opened partially, with one last chain remaining between them and the man inside. Can I help you? Conrad stepped into Nathan's line of sight. Hi, Nathan. Open up. I want to introduce you to our new neighbor. Oh, just a second. The door closed, and after some metal rasping against metal, Nathan opened it wide and stepped into the hallway. He wore a black open-collared shirt and black jeans. Other than jet black hair and alert black eyes, there was little to distinguish him. This is Roz Wells. She moved into Mary's place across the hall. One side of his mouth turned up. Roz Wells, huh? Roz extended her hand. Yeah, I'm sure my parents weren't cruel enough to do that to me intentionally. He took her hand and shook it. Maybe they did. Easy to remember. Do you believe in aliens? That's an odd opening question. Must be part of his eccentric charm. My experience is too limited for me to voice an opinion. Too bad, Nathan said. Too bad? She glanced at Conrad, and he lifted his shoulders. What do you do? She asked. I work in a morgue. He smiled and waited, probably looking for a reaction. As Conrad had said, she wouldn't give it to him. Oh, that must be interesting work. Not really. Dead is dead is dead. Not much changes. I suppose you're right. So what do you do? I'm a lawyer. Conrad was quick to add, but she doesn't care for it and wants to find another line of work. Nathan cocked his head. There's an opening at the morgue. I don't suppose you see dead people? No. I've watched Morgaine channel a spirit, but that's about it. That's good. You'd be perfect to work at a morgue then. You might even pick up some business for your other line of work. Excuse me? What do you mean? Ambulance chasing. Oh, but by that time it's too late, isn't it? A frown formed before she could stop it, and Nathan laughed. Damn. He got me, didn't he? Seems like. Well, it's awfully nice of you to tell me about the job opening, but I think I'll stick to what I'm doing for now. Nathan smirked. Suit yourself. Roz rested her hand against Conrad's bicep. We should get going. I don't want to be late for my thing. She gestured in circles. Oh yeah, the thing. I almost forgot. Conrad put an arm around Roz. Well, I just wanted to introduce you too. I guess my job is done. I guess so, Nathan said. Nice to meet you, Nathan. I'm sure I'll see you around. Maybe, he said and retreated to his apartment. Several clicks indicated he was relocking his door a lot. You were right. He's an odd bird. Conrad snorted. You have no idea. Okay, so you've met Nathan from your floor. Dottie and me from the second floor, and Morgane and Chad. Are you up to meeting the rest of the third floor? I'm not sure. Should I? Why not? Are you nervous? Nervous doesn't exactly cover it. Maybe it's best to take the introductions in small doses. Are we weirding you out? It might help to meet someone who's a little more normal and wears a color other than black. Is there such a person in this building? Conrad slapped a big hand over his mouth and looked like he was trying not to burst out laughing. What? He shook his head. Oh, sweetheart, if you're looking for normal, you came to the wrong place. The only person like that would be Joe, the private detective, and he knowingly has a ghost as a roommate. Oh, okay. It looks like my train stopped at Freak Central Station. Maybe we should go back to that list and sign up for some classes, Conrad suggested. Probably a good idea. Who needs to know all their neighbors anyway? He chuckled, making her more nervous than she already was. I'm so glad we called when we did. One day later, and we'd have missed the deadline to register for these classes, Roz said. Yeah, I'm looking forward to gliding around the dance floor with you. Conrad placed a hand on Roz's waist and she placed her hand on his shoulder the way the dance instructors had demonstrated. Yeah, and I'm not the most patient man in the world. How long would we have had to wait for the next session? 6 weeks. They laced the fingers of their free hands together and held them high. At least. This is a 6-week course and I don't know if they take a break in between. Conrad advanced with his right foot a little early, and Roz hesitated. He felt the lump of her toes under his foot just as he was putting his full weight on. Ouch! Roz cried and hopped away holding her left foot. Her black stiletto teetered on the floor and fell over. Conrad took a step back. Oh God, I'm sorry. Are you all right? She drew in a few deep breaths and rubbed her toes. Yeah, I'm fine. The female instructor stopped the music and said, I see we have Cinderella in our class. Where's your other shoe, Cinderella? Conrad retrieved her spike-heeled shoe and handed it to her. It was under my other left foot, I'm afraid. Ha! At least the prince admits he has 2 left feet. The male instructor spoke with a Slavic accent. His female counterpart turned the music back on. Everyone else continued to practice. I'll work with these 2. How humiliating. It wasn't your fault, lover. I think I was supposed to get my foot out of your way before you crushed it. Roz, tell me the truth. Are you hurt? Because we should stop right now if you are. No. I'm fine. Really. We can't give up that easily. I guess you're right. I'm sure all dancers have had their share of injuries. The male instructor joined them. It's true. No one learns to dance well without a few spills and missteps along the way. Now take your positions. Conrad rested his right hand on Roz's waist and took her hand in his left. Can think of positions I'd rather be in. We don't have to do this, you know. I mean, if you're not enjoying yourself. No, I didn't mean it like that. He chuckled. You were just reading my dirty mind. The instructor frowned at Conrad. Is something funny? No, not at all. Pay attention, lover. We'll get to those other positions later. He grinned. The instructor said, I'll count 1, 2, 3, go. That moment I want you both to move your feet. Sir, your right foot goes forward and miss, your left foot goes back. Now as soon as you've done that one move, stop. Understood. The couple nodded and said, Understood. Okay. 1, 2, 3, go. They both took the one step they were supposed to take safely. Good. Now back to your original position and do it again. Now I feel like an idiot. Don't. It's no big deal. We can do this. The instructor repeated his 1, 2, 3, go speech twice more, and when they hadn't injured one another, he said, Good. Now one of you count to 3. And go, but this time follow with the rest of the steps to the count of 3. And make the box as we showed you. Conrad said, I'll count. Hopefully it'll help my concentration. Are you ready? Roz nodded. Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. The 2 of them slid into the first and second steps perfectly, but when it came to Conrad's taking a step back and Roz's stepping forward, his stride was far longer than hers, and he pulled her off balance. She stumbled, but he caught her before she fell. Oomph! Damn heels. The instructor shook his head slowly. Sorry, it wasn't you or your shoes, Roz. I know what I did wrong, Conrad said. The instructor crossed his arms. And what was that? I extended my back leg too far. The instructor cocked his head and frowned. You have front legs and back legs? No wonder you have 2 left feet. Conrad laughed nervously. Your partner has much shorter legs than you do. You must always compensate for that, the instructor was saying. Okay, let's try again. I'll take smaller steps. Roz and Conrad resumed their starting positions, and the instructor said, I'll count. After the initial 1, 2, 3 go, he continued to count the beat of the waltz while the couple made the short steps in the shape of a box. Are we having fun yet? Roz laughed, but the break in concentration caused her to miss a step, and Conrad trampled her toes again. Ow! She hopped over to the chairs lining the length of the dance hall, sat on one, removed her shoe and massaged her toes. Conrad followed her. Are you okay? Yeah, I'll live. This isn't working out, is it? Let's not give up yet. Someday we'll laugh about this. The instructor glanced away and mumbled something under his breath. I think our teacher is ready to quit. Roz chuckled. Well, I'm not. She slipped into her shoe again and stood, taking Conrad's hand. Come on, let's do this. They counted and danced successfully this time for several turns. The instructor smiled and clapped. That was enough to interrupt their concentration, and the couple went down with a thud, landing in a tangled heap of arms and legs. Roz gasped and yelled, Frig! Oh crap! Conrad rolled off of her quickly. I hurt you that time, didn't I? She breathed deeply through gritted teeth. Both instructors rushed over. What happened? Roz managed to compose herself enough to say, I twisted my ankle. The male instructor extended his hand to help her up. She tried to stand and winced. Conrad jumped to his feet and picked her up off the floor. I'm taking you to the emergency room. No, I'm sure it's not that bad. Just give me a couple of minutes to rest. Your ankle is already swelling. No, they're just fat. Conrad gave her the hairy eyeball and said, No, they're not. And since one is getting bigger and redder than the other, I guess you have a sprain. Now, don't argue. I'm taking you to the hospital. He strode toward the door. We should call an ambulance, the female instructor said. No need. We're close to the New England hospital. I can carry her there if you'll get the door. Wait, my purse. Conrad paused by the chairs they sat in earlier and let her point it out, but he refused to put her down. One of the instructors handed it to her. Are you sure you don't want us to call an ambulance? No, I can get her there faster than they can. Okay. The male instructor opened the door for them and held it while Conrad carried her down the stairs to the sidewalk. Hang on, Han, he said, and as soon as she'd locked her arms around his neck, he sprinted down the street. Chapter 7. The emergency room doctor delivered the good news as she studied the X-ray. You're lucky. Nothing's broken. It's just a sprain and should heal in a few days. I feel like a complete klutz. Roz, it wasn't your fault. It was mine, Conrad said. No, it was mine. I tripped you. Conrad placed his hands on his hips. Well, clearly dancing isn't our thing. The ear doctor laughed and finished winding the bandage around Roz's ankle. There you go, Rosalind. Now stay off your feet and keep your right ankle elevated. Use ice to bring down the swelling and Tylenol every 4 hours as needed for pain. Roz sighed. Yes, ma'am. Tylenol. Nothing really numbing like Demerol. Huh. Do you have any crutches? The doctor asked. No, but I'll buy some. Conrad patted her back. I have some you can borrow. Roz snorted. Oh, that would be fun to watch. I'll look like a pole vaulter in the Olympics except with 2 poles. The doctor grinned. I'm sure the crutches are adjustable. Most are. Anyway, you're all set to go. But call us if you have any questions or your condition changes. How are you getting home? Conrad plucked her off the exam table and cradled her in his arms. I'll carry her home safely. The doctor let out a deep sigh. I wish I had a big strapping hottie too. Roz raised her eyebrows. She'd better not be after my guy. I might sprain it. Wrist punching her and then who'd patch me up? Probably not, the doctor eyed. Just knocked out. The woman cleared her throat and looked away. Oh, sorry. I guess that wasn't very professional. Roz finally had a reason to chuckle. Yeah, well, you'll have to get your own. This one's taken. She turned her face to Conrad's for a full-on kiss. The doctor said, Hey, get a room. I mean another room. Conrad broke the kiss. I think that's a great idea. Let's go, Angel. Ah, he even calls you Angel. You don't happen to have a brother, do you? Conrad grinned. As a matter of fact, I do. How do you feel about cops? Really? The doctor's eyes lit up. Health professionals date cops all the time. Something about serving the public and understanding the need to put the job first, yada yada yada. Well, give me your number, and I'll pass it on to him. Does he look like you? We're twins. Identical. The doctor fanned herself with the sheet of paper in her hand. Oh wow. There. Is a god. Here. I'll write my name and number on your girlfriend's discharge. Instructions. She scrawled something on the back before Roz had a chance to say yeah or nay. Roz hoped the good doc wasn't trying to find a subtle way to slip Conrad her phone number. The doctor folded the paper, tucked it into his shirt pocket and gave it a little pat. This is my weekend on, so I'm off next weekend. Don't forget to tell your twin to call me. She then hurried off toward the nurse's station. Awesome, Roz said deadpan. We can double date. Not gonna happen. I want you all to myself. She wound her arms tighter around his neck and kissed his cheek. Sounds good. To me. Let's go home. She'd forgotten to worry about her heaviness until that moment. Putting her full weight in his arms seemed nearly natural. On the way to their apartment building, Conrad shared the brilliant idea of consulting the witches about what jobs might work for them. Roz wasn't so sure. It was brilliant but couldn't put her finger on why not. They were still discussing the subject when they reached their building. Roz considered the possibility from different angles, and even though she was open-minded, she wasn't sure she wanted to go to the mysterious women. Stairs. Don't witches predict the future with tarot cards and stuff? They aren't career counselors. Still in Conrad's arms, she used her outer door key to open the front door. His broad back braced it open as he maneuvered them inside. True. But maybe they can look into our futures and tell us what we'll wind up doing. Then we can cut out all the trial and error. He reached her apartment door, and as soon as she unlocked it, they made their way inside. I'm not sure that's how it works either. What if we check online? Then, if it's not a great way to make this kind of decision and we don't want to take their advice, we won't insult our neighbors. Conrad set her on the sofa and fluffed up a throw pillow. He carefully placed it under her ankle. That's not a bad idea. Do you mind if we use your computer? I don't have one. She pointed and said, be my guest. It's in the top of my desk. As soon as he'd laid the ice pack on her ankle, he strolled to the roll-top desk. Roz admired his strong grace. I haven't seen one of these desks for ages. The top clickety-clicked as he opened it. I always liked them. He took the laptop to Roz and asked, are you as into antiques as it seems, from your living room furniture? Kind of. I mean, I like a few nice pieces, but I don't want to clutter my place with dusty old junk. No, you have a nice balance between old and older. He smiled and she knew he was kidding. Thanks. She opened the laptop and turned it on. Give it a minute to warm. What keyword should we search? Conrad stretched. I don't know. Why don't you Google tarot? As soon as the machine was ready, Roz typed in tarot. Up came thousands of hits. Okay, we might have to narrow this down a bit. What should we look for? An online reader. That sounds about right. Try it. Roz went back to the search function and added card reader. Well, the good news is there are still thousands to choose from. Conrad looked over her shoulder. What's the bad news? There are still thousands to choose from. He rolled his eyes. We've got to start somewhere. What's the first link? Wikipedia. That's not what we want. Find one that says something about giving consultations. Roz handed him the laptop. Why don't you pick one and see if you like the website? Conrad took a seat on the ottoman, and Roz watched as he clicked and clicked. He seemed comfortable with the laptop, despite his big fingers. She hadn't noticed a typewriter in his apartment, but maybe he kept one hidden away, or maybe he was just used to typing from his former days as a teacher. Here's one I like. Tarot by Arwen. Professional, compassionate tarot. Consultations. Roz reached for the laptop. Let me see. She scanned the site and it seemed well set up and maintained. She looked at a few blog postings from the archives and decided the woman seemed as advertised. Professional and compassionate. I like her picture. It looks like a candid of her laughing. Conrad smiled as he said it. So many psychics seem overly serious with no sense of humor. Roz drew in a deep breath. Okay, let's give Arwen a shot. She even has a handy contact Arwen link. She handed the laptop back to Conrad. You want me to contact her? Sure. You seem to know more about it, so why don't you go first? Okay, here goes nothing. He clickety-clicked across the keyboard in a rush of words that made her curious. Isn't there some kind of form to fill out? No. Just a blank page to give her some basic information and whatever else. You want her to know. I guess you want her to know everything about you. Hell, even I don't know that much. Weisenheimer. Hey, you talked me into this. She kicked at him and winced. I shouldn't have done that. He smirked. After he typed what seemed to be an extremely long message and sent it, Roz asked, what was all that about? She needed certain information. Name, date of birth, time and place of birth. Plus I had a bit of explanation I had to include about the need for a fast track to the new career and how we're trying different things. I mean, it sounds as if she's doing astrology with all the birth info. When is your birthday anyway? He grinned. It's easy to remember. 12/12. Don't ask the year. Why don't you want to tell me the year? Damn. Are you afraid to let me know how old you are? She crossed her arms. I'm older than you. Let's leave it at that. Not much, judging by your looks. She cocked her head and studied him. To be honest, you could even be younger. Aha, so that's it. You're younger than I am, and you don't want me to feel old or worse, like I have the upper hand by being older and wiser. He rolled his eyes. Trust me, I'm older, and I like having you on top now. And then he gave her a conspiratorial wink. There you go, always thinking about sex. Sure, we can. We just have to think creatively. Do you have any duct tape or masking tape? Roz's eyes rounded. Do duct tape? What for? My ankle is already wrapped in an ace bandage. Conrad laughed. I just want to tape the ice pack on. Oh. Roz's face heated. I could probably leave it off. The discharge instruction said to keep it on no more than 20 minutes at a time, and then to leave it off for 20. One side of Conrad's mouth hitched up. I guess we can make 20 minutes. Count. Then he waggled his eyebrows. Wait a minute, cowboy. I haven't even said I want to have sex right now. Oh. His face fell. Don't you? Well, yeah. Depending on what your creative position requires. He chuckled. I think you can manage it. It's called missionary style. Roz laughed. Conrad swooped in for a deep kiss. A few minutes of making out on the couch later, Roz's laptop pinged, announcing she had email. Few saved by the bell. Would you mind? She reached in the general direction of the laptop, and he handed it to her. She opened her email and saw that Arwen had responded. Wow, that Arwen is fast. She sent payment information and something else. A message for you, I guess. Conrad practically ripped the laptop out of her hands, looking nervous. It just said, I understand. You can trust me. Roz's curiosity was piqued. What is that about? Oh, I added some personal information about my strengths and limitations. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. There he goes again. I see. Roz eyed him suspiciously. What is it you don't want me to know? He hung his head. Someday I'll tell you, but right now I just can't. Okay. It's a long story. You can trust me, you know? I know. And even that turns me on. He stood and abruptly scooped her into his arms. Roz gulped, unable to tear her gaze from his. Conrad's stare grew molten as he carried her to the bedroom and laid her in the middle of the queen-size bed. He unbuttoned her blouse carefully and popped open the front closure of her bra. Then he climbed in beside her. You seem to have better control over your rough side this time. You're hurt. His tender treatment of her spoke volumes, and she relaxed, ready for anything he wanted to do with her. Even though she was exposed and vulnerable, she didn't shy away from his piercing stare. She wanted him to finish what he'd begun. Strip, damn it. Want to admire you too. Conrad grinned, and his canines seemed longer. Must be my imagination. He pulled his t-shirt over his head, exposing his impressive pectoral muscles and six-pack abs. She'd grown used to his massive biceps, but even they seemed to loom larger than normal. She remembered he'd been carrying her around all evening. Roz had never been very bold in the bedroom, but this man made her want to try it all. Gentle sex, rough sex, twisted ankle sex. No one else had ever made her come undone like he did. She could starve to death in bed with Conrad, and, for as much as she loved food, that was saying quite a lot. He lay down beside her and leaned over for a long, languorous kiss. She held him by the shoulders, always worried about accidentally pulling his hair. When their lips finally parted, Conrad planted wet, hot kisses down her abdomen to her navel. He began to part her thighs by moving her good leg. You don't have to do that, Roz said. I know I don't have to. I mean, I love it when you do, but it might be kind of awkward. Surprise overtook her as he jumped over her good leg, and as she tried to spread her knees, pain stabbed her ankle. Ow, ow. He froze. I can't do this. I might hurt you. Roz took some deep breaths until the pain subsided. I'm sorry. I wish I could. Don't be sorry. There are bound to be times when one of us can't handle having sex. He leaned over and placed a tender kiss on her forehead. And you won't dump me for someone less accident-prone? He laughed. Not a chance. Chapter 8. Here it is. Tarot reading by Arwen for Conrad Wolfenson. Conrad had taken Roz's laptop to her bedroom and stretched out beside her. Roz, still naked but covered with a sheet, lounged with her foot propped on a pillow. Read it out loud. Conrad had stolen a peek before taking it to Roz and made sure nothing incriminating like his year of birth 1912 was mentioned. He wasn't ready to explain that werewolves aged at a much slower rate than humans. Hell, he wasn't ready to reveal he was a Leakin at all. Fortunately, Arwen referenced his birthday only as December 12th. Since Roz looked comfortable, reading aloud seemed like the best way to share the information, despite the fascinating pictures of the tarot cards themselves. He set the laptop in front of him so he could read and run his fingers lightly over Roz's arm at the same time. She shivered. Sorry. Do you want me to stop doing that? As long as you can read and avoid touching me in those especially distracting places, I should be able to handle it. He grinned. I'll try to behave myself. Okay, so the first heading says, how do you see the people around you? You don't really want to hear that part, do you? Of course I do. I'm around you and I'd like to know how you see me. He laughed. I think it's more general than that, but here goes. People around you represent opportunity. They are your chance to achieve and show off a bit. Sometimes you see what they have and yearn for that. You have an unopened bag of tricks yet. There are things these people still have not seen about you. Things you still have to show them. There is some need to prove yourself to these people. Roz interjected. I wonder what that could be. Yeah, well, who knows? Should I continue? Please. Conrad cleared his throat. Okay, just a little left of that category. Says, the ships in the harbor represent coming chances with 3 people. You are focused on one of them, and it is possibly causing you to be a bit off your game. The sandals in the sand indicate that some part of you is ready to put down roots. Roz raised her eyebrows as if asking a question, but didn't verbalize it. Here, I'll show you the picture of the card so you can see the ship and sandals. He turned the screen toward her. She nodded at it. Pretty. Kind of looks like a guy is playing limbo on the beach. Maybe it's the Club Med card. He chuckled, but more to cover his disappointment. Okay, so it didn't seem like she was ready to talk about commitment. He'd have to wait for the right moment. Things like that shouldn't be rushed. He turned the screen back to where he could read it and scrolled down. The next category is, how are you seen by the people around you? Now it's my turn. And my chance to have a little fun. Hey, it may not refer to how I see you. You doubt everyone sees me as gorgeous and great in bed? Roz rolled her eyes. He leaned over and kissed her. When he returned to the screen, he feigned surprise and said, hey, how about that? It says, you're viewed by others as handsome and virile. It does not. He grinned sheepishly. You saw through that, huh? A little bit. Now go on. Read. I'm enjoying this. Okay. The Queen of Swords is a very mentally focused person. You are seen as driven. Sometimes your sarcasm comes out wrong. Hey, I'm not sarcastic. Roz shrugged. This is how others see you. Maybe you're not aware of it. Humph. I suppose. He took a deep breath and continued. Those around you may see you as a bit of a loner as well, because where you live is so different from where they live, even if it's on the same street. Now that I can believe, Roz said. What do you mean? Because our building's full of weirdos? Aha. That's the sarcasm that doesn't come out right. I live in this building, you weirdo. Sorry. Hey, do you want to see the card? It's a woman on an ice-covered cliff, holding a sword, and a couple of white eagles soaring around the snow-capped mountains. I'll take your word for it. Go ahead. Keep reading. Folks see you as someone with many responsibilities and projects. You seem to have your eye on the prize always. There is one very close to you who watches and learns from you. Well, that's interesting. Do you think that has something to do with you? Roz smiled shyly and lifted one shoulder. Maybe. I'm learning to accept my body. I'm not learning how to dance, but I am learning how to take care of a sprained ankle thanks to you. Oh, nice. Now who's being sarcastic? She grinned. Never said I wasn't. Fine. I'll just continue reading. When people come to you for advice, they know they'll get true Sagittarian honesty, low on tact but high on blunt information. Roz laughed. I guess you really mean it when you say you like the extra pounds I'm padded with. Otherwise you'd tell me how fat my ass is. You see? I'm an honest guy. Now do you believe me? I guess I'll have to. The cards don't lie. No, they're kind of blunt and honest too. She sat up and wrapped her arms around him. Don't worry, they can't say anything that will turn me away from you. I'm not hearing much to guide you in a career choice though. The next part might have something. It's titled, What is your most important goal? Yeah, that sounds promising. Let's hear it. The Nine of Swords is an interesting goal. It is about nightmares and anxieties. It is about feeling as if you haven't done enough. You carry some past guilt. Your goal seems to make sure that others are never in this same position. You would move heaven and earth to protect those you consider yours. Conrad stopped reading aloud. This information hit too close to home and he didn't want to explain to Roz what it meant. He knew the truth though. He'd failed his pack. He allowed another Leakin to challenge him for alpha status, knowing the bastard couldn't be trusted. He didn't bother to dispute the lies that Petrosky spread either. He thought his pack knew him well and would never believe that crap. So what if he did help a vampire who was about to burst into flames from the sun? Watching someone else suffer had never turned him on, unlike his nemesis, who seemed to revel in it. Sly was one of his best friends and had helped him in return many times. Conrad would never regret their friendship, but apparently enough was said to plant seeds of doubt, and that's all it took. He couldn't blow off the challenge, or he'd be seen as a coward in the eyes of his pack, the very thing Petrosky accused him of. How Petrosky found a female in the pack to testify that Conrad had left her vulnerable to attack, he'd never know. One of the foremost werewolf edicts was for all males to protect the pack females, especially those who weren't yet mated. Somehow Petrosky got Ella to say she saw Conrad at the top of the hill that led from Newton to Woburn. She claimed he ran when a rival pack began closing in. Then she said Petrosky came bounding down the hill and saved her. How could anyone believe such a load of crap? How could she tell a lie like that? He suspected some kind of bribery but couldn't confirm it at the time. Now he knew his suspicions were well-founded, because Petrosky took Ella for his mate. Poor Ella. Where are you? Roz asked. Huh. Oh, it's not important. Not important, my ass. Well then, what was that long pause for? I was, just studying the card. It's kind of creepy. Let me see. He turned the screen toward her, and Roz saw a dark scene. It appeared to be a man weeping in bed with swords all around him. That is kind of macabre. Well, read the rest of it. Maybe there's something positive to counteract the negative. Not really. The only thing it says after that is, this indicates one who failed to protect something or someone and wants to prove to themselves that they are not a failure. What could that possibly mean? His muscles tensed. She waited, and when he didn't respond, she folded her arms and said, Okay, I guess you just suck at everything and might as well give up. He smirked. You're being sarcastic again, aren't you? Roz kissed his shoulder. You betcha. I doubt this is an exact science. There are bound to be things that don't make sense. Now read. She may not trust it, but still she wants to hear every word. Conrad took a deep breath. Where do you get your strength from? Roz raised her eyebrows. Me? Why? Do you think I should be tired? No. That's the name of the next section. Oh. She slapped her forehead and chuckled. Sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. Read on. Conrad continued. The Ace of Cups shows that you're a very emotional fellow. Your love for others carries and drives you. You gain power from that bond. Roz nodded, but remained silent. Emotional? Power? Yeah, I've seen him shake. With emotion. But is that from love? It seemed more like pent-up desire. Unaware of her thoughts or ignoring them, he read. This is about you. Creating family wherever you go. You may not have your blood family close for the most part, but you adopt people into your world. He looked up and smiled. What's that for? Are you adopting me? He laughed. That might be kind of awkward at this stage and illegal in several southern states. No kidding. Let's hear the rest. You tend to have a pretty good humor about life as well, not a lackadaisical attitude, but definitely a bring it on, I can take it style. That I believe. Roz tickled him. He flinched. Don't start. I'm almost at the end. Okay, finish it up. I'll wait. We're at the last section. It says, why do you want to be remembered? Maybe. There's finally a clue about what I should do for a living. Even if there isn't, this has been very interesting. Yeah, for you. He chuckled and then continued. The card is the universe. No. Little dreams for you. You want to be remembered as someone who carved out their own place. You see the 4 figures in this card? Each represents a part of you that you are working to bring together. You want to be remembered as the one who created safety for others as well as yourself. Well, how about that? You're a security expert. Sounds like you should be doing exactly what you used to do. Conrad's face fell. Nifty. Roz's mood deflated as well, understanding how much he really wanted a change. What does that card look like? He turned the screen toward her. A bloated blue woman with big droopy boobs danced in the middle of the card. The 4 figures in the corners were hardly noticeable compared to that one, but she made out a dolphin, a goat, a lion, and a raven. What do you think it means? Who did you fail and what's all the talk about? Protection. Nothing. It means nothing. I guess Tara was a bust for career counseling. Back to the drawing board. Roz didn't believe the irritation in his voice meant nothing, and his earlier pensiveness meant something too. It wouldn't do any good to demand he tell her what was bothering him before he was ready. He'd clammed up before and he'd just do it again. He had some kind of a secret, that much she was sure of. Conrad, I know there's something important you're not telling me, and I can only assume you're not ready to trust me with it yet. He opened his mouth, but before he had a chance to respond, she held up her hand and kept talking. I can understand that. We haven't known each other very long, but I won't let you hide whatever it is from me forever. Eventually, you'll need to find a way to let me in. He hung his head for a moment and then looked up with a teasing expression. Can't I just distract you with sex for the rest of our lives? She sighed. Nice try, wise guy. 2 weeks and lots of TLC later, Conrad placed his hand on the small of Roz's back as they strolled toward the bartender school. With its location on the 2nd floor of a strip mall, he pictured a bar fight at an Old West saloon, with someone thrown out a 2nd-story window. I don't know why we didn't think of this sooner, Roz said. Dancing would have taken months to learn. This bartending course is only 2 weeks. I know. It would be ideal to find a new job in only a couple of weeks. Their placement program is any good, maybe we'll be hired right out of school. I'll have to give at least a 2-week notice, but you could start right away. Yeah. Thanks to my getting fired from the security job. I wonder if I should have told her I just quit. Now she probably thinks I'm a loser. I don't think you're a loser. In fact, you're more of a winner for telling me the truth. He stiffened. Roz glanced up at him. I got fired once. Really? You? I can't imagine you doing anything that wrong. You know I'm a klutz, right? Oh. Where did you work? A china shop. Like a bull in the? No, but thanks a lot for the visual. I'm sorry. I was trying to make a joke. You know I wouldn't intentionally insult you. True. Conrad changed the subject as they ascended the stairs. What are the odds of our getting hired by the same bar? Nothing says we have to work together. It might work out better if we don't. I hear that too much togetherness can be hard on relationships. Yeah, we could wind up on different shifts if the place is small and they don't need more than one bartender at a time, and then we'd never see each other. He spied the lettering on the first door they came to. Ah, there it is. Mass Bartending School. He opened the door for Roz and followed her in. The place looked exactly like a working bar. A long mirror backed one wall. In front of it sat bottles of every description, holding liquids of every color. The bar itself was made of highly polished wood. He imagined there must be a sink and refrigerator behind it. A few students were already present, sitting on bar stools. He pulled one out for Roz and then seated himself. Ah, isn't that cute? Said a thin red-haired girl with several piercings and tattoos. And they say chivalry is dead. That one will probably get a job in a biker bar. Looks like she'd fit right in, Roz thought loud enough for Conrad to hear. They gazed at each other and chuckled. What's so funny? The girl asked. Oh, nothing. I'm Roz and this is my boyfriend, Conrad. The redhead flipped her hair behind her shoulder. Too bad. Two other men sat together at the opposite end of the bar. One spoke up. I'm Glenn and this is my boyfriend, Bruce. The redhead rolled her eyes. Just my friggin' luck. You're all taken. What's your name? Conrad asked. Not that I care a whole lot. I'm Chastity. Yeah, I know. Don't start. Don't start what? Roz tipped her head and looked genuinely puzzled. Nice acting, sweetheart. I know you didn't miss that joke. Maybe if this gig doesn't do it for us, we can try out for some plays. Chastity waved her away and faced the opposite direction. A short, chubby guy whose hair looked prematurely gray shuffled in from the back room. He carried an armload of paper and folders. Good evening, everyone. Strolling behind the bar, he continued his introduction in a monotone voice. My name is John Kelly. Welcome to Kelly's bar. I thought this was Mass Bartending School, Chastity said. It is. But when I'm instructing, we call it Kelly's bar. When my partner, Ron's instructing, we call it Ron's bar. Conrad folded his arms. Ron and John, huh? Don't you have surf shop? No, he said, sounding bored. Maybe he'd heard that one before. Why does Ron use his first name and you use your last? Glenn asked. Because Ron's last name is Dick. He thinks Dick's bar sounds a little like a gay bar. Glenn elbowed his partner. That's what we can name our place. The other students chuckled. Well, let's get started. John passed out the folders first, then each student received a few papers stapled together. Conrad glanced at the pages of recipes. John leaned against the bar. This is what we're going to make tonight, but first I'll talk about the different glasses we'll use. He lined up a few glasses of various shapes and sizes. Two other guys had joined the class by the time the students started hands-on training. Chastity was happy to learn they weren't together, and Roz noted the one who introduced himself as Bubba seemed just the type that little Miss Total Body Tattoo would go for. Okay, so you're about to learn how to pour a shot without measuring, John said. Pick a highball glass and one of the bottles with a spout. Everyone grabbed a bottle of colored water. Roz realized their class would cost a whole lot more than $350 if they poured real liquor, but couldn't help being disappointed anyway. Imagine how fast the 3-hour class would fly by if we got to drink our mistakes. Conrad chuckled. You must be reading my mind again. Yeah, and I was just thinking the same thing. You saw me demonstrate a standard pour a moment ago, John said. Now I want you all to try it. We'll measure afterward to see how close you've come. This guy reminds me of Ben Stein when he talks, Chastity whispered to the guy beside her. I'm surprised she knows who that is, Roz whispered. It's probably from commercials. She's not old enough to remember his movies and TV show. While distracted, Roz tipped the heavy bottle upside down, and it slipped out of her grasp. Crash. Glass shards and liquid exploded and landed everywhere. Glenn jumped back, but some of the liquid landed on his gray pants anyway. Oh, that's a shame, Bruce said. That was your favorite pair. I'm so sorry, Roz said. I'll pay for dry cleaning. The guy named Bubba glanced down at his jeans. Hey, you got some on me too. Are you gonna pay for my dry cleaning? John hung his head and extracted a dustpan and brush from beneath the counter. As soon as he'd handed it to her, he crossed his arms and said, This is why we don't use real alcohol. Without a word, Roz cleaned up the glass. Meanwhile, Conrad found a bar towel and sopped up the gold liquid. Hey, I mean it, Bubba said, agitated. I ain't washing these pants. Conrad straightened. They're jeans. They'll go through the washing machine just fine. Besides, I don't see anything on them. Look here. Bubba pointed out a minuscule drop. The golden color barely showed. Conrad leaned against the bar. You're being ridiculous. Bubba started toward Conrad, and Conrad advanced on Bubba. Roz slapped a palm against each of their chests. I'll wash them. No need for bloodshed, okay? Conrad stood where he was. The guy can wash his own pants, Roz. Bubba glared down at her hand on his t-shirt and snarled, or came as close to it as anyone could. Something about him seemed off. Roz, why don't you try that pour again? Dawn said. She picked up another bottle, and when she had the full shot in the glass, Bubba purposely bumped into her, knocking the drink out of her hand. It went crashing to the floor again, except this time it coated her shoes and Conrad's pants. She gasped. That's it, Conrad said. Let's take this outside. No. Getting flustered, Roz tried again to interject herself between the two large angry men. Bubba pushed her out of the way and she fell. Conrad reacted as if he hadn't thought about the consequences. Before she knew, he threw a punch that knocked the guy off his feet. Bubba climbed upright wearing a menacing smile. He took a swing at Conrad, but her lover's reaction time was too quick, and the guy's fist connected with the bottles. Several more crashed to the floor and shattered. The other students scurried out of the way. Bubba grabbed his fist and sucked in a deep breath between his teeth. John strolled to the phone on the wall and dialed 911 as if he did it every day. Bubba then shook out his bloody hand. Conrad said, We really should take this outside if you insist on fighting. Oh, I insist. He ran at Conrad like a football player making a tackle. Conrad went down with a thud as everyone cleared out from behind the bar. The two fighters rolled back and forth, fists flying. Stop! Roz yelled. Sirens sounded from far away but were drawing closer. Conrad finally flipped the guy over and pinned him. Now, I don't think you want to get arrested any more than I do. Let's stop this foolishness right now. Okay, Bubba said, seeming conciliatory. As soon as Conrad let him up, Bubba threw a wicked punch and Roz thought she heard something crunch. She cried out and Conrad fell like tree. Bubba jumped over the bar and ran down the stairs, disappearing into the night. Chapter 9. Conrad rubbed his chin as Roz jammed her hands on her hips and argued with the cop. It was not his fault. You should have seen the other guy, I swear he was psychotic. The cop jotted something down on a small pad of paper. Conrad suspected the guy's problem wasn't psychosis, or if it was, could it possibly be due to rabies? Bubba might have recognized a rival pack member. Correction, former rival pack member. The idiot's eyes had glowed as if he'd wanted to shift but resisted, thank God. Conrad figured he was the only one who noticed it. Being psychotic doesn't give anyone the right to bust up a bar. The cop faced Conrad. Are you going to come along quietly? Or do I need to call for backup? Call anyone you want. I've already agreed to pay for damages, and an eyewitness who happens to be a lawyer just told you I was acting in self-defense and averting a threat to her. The cop turned to Roz. You're a lawyer? Yes, a defense attorney and a good one. You'd be wasting the court's time. Officer. Fortunately, the other eyewitnesses had nothing to say. Conrad was afraid Chastity would open her big mouth and add to the problem. The cop narrowed his eyes and stared at the rest of the group. Did anybody else see what happened? We all did, John said. Did anyone see something different? The other students shook their heads. John sighed. The other man was definitely the instigator. I have his application in the back, and can get you his contact information. I doubt he'll go home and wait to be arrested, Conrad said. His jaw still ached, but not nearly as much as it would have hurt a human. Knowing that he'd heal faster because werewolves do, he'd need to milk it a bit. The cop continued to talk to John. Do you want to press charges? He shook his head. I guess not. This man has already offered to replace the bottles and glasses that broke. There isn't much more damage and I don't want the bad publicity. He turned back to Conrad and Roz. What about you two? Do either of you want to press charges? Conrad said. No. At the same time, Roz said. Hell yes. Conrad rested a hand on Roz's shoulder. Can I talk to you outside for a moment? Sure. The cop stuffed his pad of paper and pen back in his pocket. I'll go with you. As soon as he and Roz reached the parking lot, Conrad looked at her with such intensity it made her uncomfortable. Look, I know how you feel about scumbags getting off when they're guilty as sin, but I think this will be a waste of time. Not willing to let him intimidate her, she leaned forward with her hands on her hips. Why are you suddenly a paper tiger? The cop cleared his throat. I'm still here. It's okay, Roz said. He's not so macho that I can't speak my mind. I believe your boyfriend said the guy wouldn't go home and wait to be arrested. He's probably right. The idea of simply giving up and letting the jerk win rankled her. The guy may not have gone straight home, but he has to go there eventually. Conrad gently held her shoulders. I just don't think it's worth it. For crying out loud. Is Conrad afraid of him? What about other innocent people? Aren't they worth protecting? It could have been worse, she said. Do you want him to pull that somewhere else? Conrad's lips thinned. The cop added, look, all you need to do is fill out a complaint. We can take it from there. What does that entail? Conrad asked. You fill out a form at the station, and we'll pay him a visit. He be told the nature of the complaint, and if, like your girlfriend said, he seems psychotic, we can get him the help he needs. Conrad rubbed his chin. Roz had noticed the same behavior trait whenever he was deep in thought. Good. At least he's considering it. Will you share with him who made the complaint? Conrad asked. We don't have to if you'd rather we didn't. In that case, go ahead. He turned to Roz. Since you're the one who wants them to pursue it, would you mind filling out the form? I'd rather not get involved. Why are you shying away from this? You don't seem like the type to be easily intimidated. When he didn't answer her, she figured that either he didn't hear the question or was ignoring her. Either way, she had to make a decision. Sure, why not? Do I have to come down to the station, officer? Can't I give you the information here? I suppose so. I can take down what you want to say and type it up later. What's more paperwork? Sarcastic much? The cop headed back upstairs toward the school. I'll go get the guy's contact information. Wait right there. As soon as he left, Conrad edged toward the street. If you don't mind, I'd like to get home and put some ice on my jaw and take some aspirin. I can catch the subway from here. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you were still in pain. Yeah, well, you may be able to read my mind, but you can't feel my pain. I have no idea what's going on in his head right now, and I wish I did. Yeah, sure. Whatever you need to do, she said. He jogged across the parking lot and she called after him. You may be off the hook as far as the police are concerned, but I still have some questions. Not even a kiss goodbye. It's like he couldn't wait to get out of here. Conrad was relaxing in his living room trying to reread one of his favorite books, but noises from the apartment upstairs distracted him. Thump, 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 thump. What is that? Sounds like a conga line. I liked it better when it was just chat up there. No noise whatsoever. Conrad rose from his chair and stared at the ceiling. Or maybe that is Chad. I wonder if he's trying to get somebody's attention. If Joe and the witches weren't home, Conrad would probably be the only one to hear him. Or Dottie. Oh crap. If Dottie hears the noise, she'll pitch a fit. He sighed. I'd better get up there and see what's going on. Conrad took the stairs 2 at a time. When he arrived at the door to apartment 3, he knocked loudly. The noise stopped. He waited another moment or two and, when the noise didn't resume, he started down the stairs. Thump, 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 thump. What the? He jogged back up to the door and banged on it again. What the hell is going on in there? Chad? Are you trying to communicate with someone? The noise stopped again. Conrad sighed. He'd have to come up with some way to talk to Chad. 1 thump for yes and 2 for no? As he was deliberating, the door opened a crack, and Joe peered out at him. Oh hey Joe. I didn't know you were home. What was that racket? I thought Chad was trying to get someone's attention. No, he said. A naked Gwyneth came into view. She looked like a red-headed Lady Godiva. Who? Is it Joe, honey? Oh. Conrad snapped to attention. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were entertaining. Joe looked over his shoulder at Gwyneth and grinned. It's Conrad. I guess we were making too much noise. Oh my goodness. If Conrad could hear us, then Dottie probably can, bless her heart. She'll be madder than a bottle full of bees. Gwyneth came to the door, still naked and completely unabashed. Thanks for letting us know, Conrad. Wouldn't want my research to get Joe into trouble. Conrad scratched his head. Research? What kind of research? Oh, it's for my book. I'm writing erotica now. He raised his eyebrows. Joe chuckled. I've never been so happy to be someone's research assistant before. Conrad couldn't hold it in any longer and let out a booming laugh. Gwyneth frowned and crossed her arms under her pale breasts. I have to do something to pay the rent. I don't have enough education to get a fancy job. Joe stepped out from behind the door and put his arm around her. He was wearing boxers, thank goodness. You're quite well educated in this field. Sweetheart, you'll make a fine erotica writer. I know it was your idea and I'm grateful and everything, but I still don't spell worth a hoot. Joe stroked her shoulder. You don't need to know how to spell these days. The computer will correct your spelling automatically, and anything you miss, your editor will catch. She inhaled. I guess. At least I'm enjoying the research part of it. She giggled and pinched his nipple. Now can we go back and finish it? Conrad stepped away from the door. Hey, don't let me stop you. I'm going out. Soon anyway. Have fun, kids. Oh, we will, Gwyneth said and giggled. Chad floated through the witch's kitchen and eventually settled atop their refrigerator. Morgane, you know I hate to complain, but... Morgane laughed and continued stirring her soup. Chad had thought it was a potion bubbling in an iron pot on the stove, until she tasted it. Yeah, sure, Chad. I can't remember you complaining about anything in the last 5 minutes. Oh, come on. I'm not that bad. Whatever you say. She turned off the gas and set the pot on one of the cool burners. So what are you complaining about? It's your cousin. Morgane was reaching into the cabinet for a bowl and hesitated. Gwyneth? What could she be doing to bother you? I'm afraid she's going to break my roommate's heart. Morgane's jaw dropped. Are you kidding me? No, she's using him for sex in the name of research. I don't know if he realizes that. I mean, she's been honest about it, but... Wait a minute. You actually care about the feelings of someone else. Huh. I didn't mean that. Chad floated over to the table and hovered by the chair Gwyneth usually used. I'm afraid she'll hurt him and then he'll move out, and no one will be working on my murder case anymore. Morgane smirked. That's more like it. I was about to look out the window to see if I woke up in some alternate universe this morning. She set her bowl of soup opposite him and made herself comfortable. She started eating, apparently not at all bothered about the disaster waiting to happen. Morgane. She flinched. What? Aren't you going to do something about it? Isn't this against the witches' read or something? She shook her head. The read says, and it harm none, do what ye will. What the hell does that mean? She sighed deeply. It means that if you're not hurting anybody, you're in the clear. Do whatever you want. Well, what if she is hurting someone? Like who? Me. Morgane shook her head and muttered. So predictable. Look, you may not want to take this seriously, but it could easily happen. She's a beautiful young woman. He's a horny old dude. Eventually she'll find someone who really turns her on, and she'll leave him. Morgane ate her soup as if nothing could interest her less. Well, are you going to talk to her about it? No. Why not? I have better things to think about. I'm trying to solve a cold case using my skills as a medium. Chad levitated and crossed his arms. The skill I taught you? She bit her lip. Yeah. What's the case? Maybe I can help. I doubt it. I'm working with a ghost at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum. You don't like to leave the building. Neither do I, for that matter. But do you think you could make it to the Fenway? Weather permitting. I wouldn't want you to talk to Reginald anyway. Why not? I get along fine with other ghosts. Harold across the street and I would never have been friends in life, but now that we have something in common, we talk all the time. Really? I didn't know you two were so chummy. Well, I wouldn't say we're best buds. We're more like two dudes in the same life raft. He chuckled. I guess life isn't the right word, but we're both adrift. What's his story? He just died in his sleep. Boring. Not like my cool story of murder and intrigue. Morgane rolled her eyes. What? I've been meaning to ask you, why haven't you gone into the light now that your unfinished business is finished? But it's not. Yes, it is. Look, all I know is... Chad floated over her head toward the door. Crap, the jig's up. To be honest, I'd go if a beam of light appeared someday, but it hasn't. I don't think they want me on the other side. Oh, I'm sorry. I know what it's like to feel excluded. I'll bet you do. Just the way you present yourself would scare off most People. Are you trying to protect yourself? Were you traumatized at some point in your life? What a crazy question. Of course I'm not trying to scare people, and I've never been traumatized. You can't fool me, Morgane. How long have I known you? How many times have you left the apartment? It's the business. I have to be here to answer the phones. Bullshit. You always send Gwyneth to do your shopping. I don't think you've even left to see a dentist or a doctor. I'm a witch. I can heal myself. So you're saying you've never thought about dating? That you can't go out and meet real people because you have to answer the phone if a horny dude calls? No, I'm not saying that at all. Well, guys don't find me attractive. That's all. Then give up the 90s gothic look already. Get a makeover. What are you? 30. Morgane crossed her arms and frowned. You're one to talk. You're stuck in the 60s, complete with bell-bottom pants and love beads. I'm dead. What's your excuse? Chad waited for her to speak, but she remained silent. Oh, don't pout. I wasn't pouting. I was trying to think of a spell to shut you up. The truth hurts, doesn't it? Goddess, please take pity on the spirit of Chad and help him pass over to the other side. If for the good of all, so mote it be. She waited a moment and then glanced around the apartment. Chad. She smiled. Not very creative, but it might have worked. Should I mess with her head by leaving her apartment without saying a word? He chuckled to himself. Hell yes. Roz heard a knock on her door and hurried over to it. It must be Conrad. They had to talk. For one thing, she didn't want him fighting to protect her. Filing the complaint was the least aggressive way to go, and he didn't want anything to do with it. Even before that, he had reacted badly before they'd exhausted diplomacy. What was going on with him? She threw open the door and was surprised to see Morgane standing there. Morgane. What's up? Well, not me. Do you have a minute? Sure. Come in. Roz stood aside and let a hunched Morgane amble over to the couch and flop onto it. What's the matter? Did something happen? Yeah, chat happened. I usually ignore his little digs, but I think he's right. This time. Roz sat beside her. Oh? What did he say? He said I'm stuck in the 90s and I need a makeover. I've noticed you have good sense of style. I was wondering if you'd give me some ideas. Roz bolted upright. Did you say a makeover? What fun. Sure, I'd love to help. When can we start? Morgane chuckled. I didn't realize it was an emergency. Roz patted Morgane's hand. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I'm just excited about the idea of a little girl time. Mary's been in Florida and I've missed doing the things we used to do together, like shopping. In that case, we can go anytime you're free. My schedule is flexible. Are you getting anywhere with the art museum case? Morgane shrugged one shoulder. I have a feeling there's more Reginald wants to tell me, but he would rather talk to me alone. The only problem with that is not having a witness, and I'm not sure he trusts me completely yet. Now, that Chad said something. I think my clothes and makeup might have intimidated him. It's possible. Morgane hesitated. It seemed as if she wanted to tell her something else, so Roz gave her the time to put her thoughts into words. Yeah, it's more than that. I have a mild case of agoraphobia. I hate to leave the building alone. At least if someone I trust is with me and I have a panic attack, I'm sure they'll help. Of course I'll help. I had no idea. No, I'm pretty sure nobody does, except Gwyneth, of course. She does all our errands. If we need something she can't find locally, I order it online. That must be inconvenient at times. I have a car. If you ever need a ride somewhere. Morgane gave her a grateful smile. That's sweet of you. I have to really need something badly to accept a ride anywhere. My grandmother died last year and my uncle had to come all the way up from Maryland to drive me to the funeral. I understand. She didn't really know much about agoraphobia, but she'd look it up on Wikipedia later. Roz took a deep breath and smelled something earthy and sweet. What's that scent you're wearing? Patchouli. What is that? Some kind of Italian designer perfume? Morgane laughed. No, it's an essential oil. Witches wear it to attract money and I need some. Our phone sex business is drying up since Dottie put the kibosh on loud noises. Some of the guys like us to sound like we're, enjoying ourselves too. Then you need to solve the art museum case. Exactly. If I can help recover the stolen artwork, I could make millions. I'd Be set for life. Roz understood the stakes a little better. So you think your gothic style is interfering with your mediumship? Reginald's from a different era. Does he seem easily intimidated? Judging from his reaction to Conrad, I'd say he has limits. What reaction to Conrad? Oh, he hasn't told you yet? Told me what? Morgane covered her mouth and stood. I'm sorry. I've said too much. I should go. Wait. What are you saying? What didn't Conrad tell me? Morgane started toward the door. No, don't leave yet. Maybe I can get it out of her during our girl time. No, I really have to go. I'll talk to you later. Roz looked at her askance. Promise. I promise. It's not like we live miles apart. Roz rose and walked Morgane to the door. Okay, I think I understand. Whatever it is would be better coming from him, right? Morgane let out a deep breath and looked relieved. Yes, I'll just be upstairs if you need me. Need her? What's he going to do? Break my heart? What aren't you telling me? Roz demanded, standing opposite Conrad in the hallway outside his door. He pulled on his jacket and wondered who had told her. It's nothing, Roz. Well, let me amend that. Yes, there's something I have to tell you. It's just that now's not the time. Are you married? No. Do you have any illegitimate kids? No. Insanity in the family? Not per se, but some might argue that point. Why can't you tell me? I don't have to go to work for another hour and you're not working at all right now. An hour isn't enough time. That is, unless we do something else and save the talk for later. He grinned and hoped she'd catch his drift without his having to wiggle his eyebrows. Oh no, you don't. No sleazing out of it with sex. Sex isn't sleazy between consenting adults who care for each other. That's something we need to talk about. It's fine if you care about me, but you don't have to take care of me. It's very sweet of you to want to, but I'm a grown woman and I can take care of myself. Conrad cupped her cheek. I wasn't talking about taking care of you. I was talking about loving you. Roz's eyes rounded, and Conrad watched as she experienced a suspended moment. In stunned silence, at last she was able to respond. Oh. He expected her to say something more, and he waited and waited. Roz, did you hear what I said? Yeah, she murmured, seeming completely distracted. Maybe she needed it spelled out a little more. He cupped both her cheeks and waited until she was gazing into his eyes. I'm telling you I love you, Roz. I love you too. I think. You think. Conrad dropped his hands and took a step back. It's just that I know there's something you're not telling me. I need to know what it is, or at least why you can't tell me right now. She stepped forward and rested her hands against his chest. His arms automatically extended to her waist while she continued. Before, we hadn't known each other very long at all, but we've been on several dates now, and I should know what the big secret is before we go any further. He heaved a heavy sigh. Trust me, there's a right time and place to talk about this, and I'll do my best to find them. She narrowed her eyes and scrutinized him. Soon. As soon as I can. Eventually she sighed. Okay. She stepped into his space and raised her face to his for a kiss. Thank God. He kissed her tenderly at first, and then the inevitable fire sprang up, and so did part of his anatomy. After kissing her thoroughly, he asked, Are you sure you're not in the mood for a quickie? She rested her head against his chest and mumbled, You're incorrigible. But you love me. I think. Conrad gazed at the ceiling and asked for strength. Now wasn't the time to push for a commitment either. He kissed the top of her head. At least you know I love you. I'm glad I said it. She tipped her face up and her eyes sparkled. I'm glad you did too.